Welcome to the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast, your main resource for 2QB fantasy insights, smart bets, and winning props. Hosted by Fab, Knack, and Raj.
Super Bowl 59 is in the books. The 2024-25 season is the books as the Eagles shellac the Chiefs 40-22. Jalen Hurts as the MVP. We're going to have all the recap, reaction, storylines from, I would say, an uneventful Super Bowl 59 and an eventful halftime show. We're not going to talk about the halftime show. I think there's been enough bandied about that. But before we get into the meat of today's episode, I want to give a shout out to our boy Knack for hosting an amazing Bush League Super Bowl party. Had all the fixins, some prosciutto, some sandwiches, some chips, beer.
Perfectly
well done.
Calculated amount of food was ordered.
To a T.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, that was actually there was a lot of pasta left, but I made some nice pasta al forno with that tonight, so that was very, very well received.
Baked ziti?
Yes, I guess you could put it that way, except for it's not ziti, it's penne, but yes, the same I guess style, I guess. Yeah, you could say that. It was good though. It was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. The food was the fun part. The food is always the fun part. The Super Bowl typically is the fun part. It was a very disappointing game. We're gonna get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. 40 points. I think the Eagles, had the second most unanswered points ever for a Super Bowl. 34 unanswered points before the Chiefs were able to get a point. Eagles win the Super Bowl with the fifth best. Think about the fifth best odds this year. They were plus 1,200 to win the Super Bowl in the preseason. They were behind the Chiefs, Niners, Ravens.
For sure, the Bills and the Ravens.
Yeah.
Bills were actually at plus 1,600, and then the Lions, Eagles were at plus 1,200. So just an amazing job by everyone on the Eagles. Obviously, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, the getting Saquon Barkley. But going back to the Super Bowl, Knack, I want to start with you. It's been a tough postseason for you, Steelers, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. So I want to start with you. What were the keys to the victory for the Eagles, and why do you think the Chiefs lost? So take it anywhere you want.
Yeah, so you mentioned Roseman, you mentioned Sirianni. The one you forgot to mention was Vic Fangio. He outplayed Spags to a T. And I'm just going to ramble off some notes that I wrote down here that I found. So the Eagles defense in the Super Bowl, 25 pressures, 11 QB hits, 6 sacks, 3 takeaways, held the Chiefs to 23 yards and 1 first down, 0 points in the first half. And the big one, the Eagles did not blitz once across 42 dropbacks in the Super Bowl. They literally went with 4-man rushes all game long and dropped 7 into coverage. And so I think the key to Vic that is just Vic Fangio. Like, he could have won the MVP last night on his own. That defense played lights out. And honestly, the thing that shocked me the most is that Andy Reid had no answer. Like you literally no answer from the beginning to the third quarter when they finally scored some points. Like, and then, man, even Spagnuolo, like, how did you let that happen? They were so focused on stopping Barkley that they just forgot to play defense any other way. I don't know. Shout out really to the Eagles and that defense that smothered Mahomes. Got by with a 4-man rush, as I mentioned, all night long without one blitz and just dropped 7 into coverage. And bro, the Chiefs just didn't have an answer and could not get open. You saw replays when they were showing replays, like, they weren't open. Like, no player was open.
Yeah.
And I think just if I could add, Mahomes, I think is 0-8 when it takes 3.34 seconds to throw or longer. He's 0-8 in his career, including postseason.
That's a great stat. This was the Tampa Bay Super Bowl blueprint. This
exactly
was
the
the
same.
exact same thing that
Exactly
the
the same.
Buccaneers did, rush forward, drop back. That's what led the Chiefs to focus more on their O-line after that Super Bowl, to then bolster that aspect, and that's how they got to win the next two Super Bowls. Fab, I think Nak gave really good points on the Eagles. Where do you think the Chiefs lost this game? Where or when did you think the Chiefs lost this game?
I think the Chiefs need more revamping on the O-line. Listen, defense wins championships. We saw that last night when the Eagles took apart whatever O-line Mahomes had, whatever O-line the Chiefs had. So I can't fault Mahomes 100% because he was under constant duress the entire night. Like, they definitely going to need some playmakers on the outside. I think you can finally see that now. Like, Kelce is long in the tooth. The DeAndre Hopkins project didn't work out. Hollywood Brown might be a very good wide receiver too in the future, but they're going to need that staple. They're going to need a Rashee Rice to come back again healthy next year. It's going to make a huge difference. You would hope that Isaiah Pacheco comes back to his former form beforehand. But Mahomes wasn't able to do it all by himself last night. And when he's under that much pressure, that much, my God, the pressure that he was under last night, like it was too much for him to really take control and handle it. I think that was the biggest takeaway. Like,
Fab, did you? I was sitting next to you, and I don't know if you heard me, but I kept saying they abandoned the run too early. They never
established.
Kareem Hunt had one rush for 2 yards in the first half. One rush for 2 yards.
They never. Well, they got behind the 8 ball very early on, right? And then from there, they had to start passing more and just like pretty much abandon the run from the beginning.
Yeah, but they were only down 24 at half, and that was only because
17. But
I'm saying it was
even when it was 17,
and it was he threw that interception to Bond. That was okay. They scored, but they had 10 yards to go to score, right? So it was literally 17-0. Like, man, they've been down in every Super Bowl in the last 2 years, 10 points in the fourth quarter, and won, right? So even if they were down 17, if they go down and hit a field goal or a touchdown, that's 17-3 or 17-7 going into half and getting the ball back. They threw a pick and Hurts, they went 10 yards and they scored, right? So I don't think they had to change anything at that point yet.
And to that point, Mahomes is kind of been average in Super Bowls, 7 TDs, 7 INTs. So he's carrying them at the end of games, but they are starting slow. And it was the same. I think Nak, you were like, yo, guys, $20. Let's put the money line. Let's get the money line on the Chiefs.
You know how many people I spoke to today that did that exact same money line at plus 1,200 at half? Like 24 points is not much. That's 3 touchdowns, 3 2-point conversions for a team that's always down in Super Bowls and comes back late. I don't know. We had to go for that one, but obviously,
so I agree. I think the positive side was I know it was late, but the Worthy touchdown, it kind of shows you what it almost feels like they need to get back to the big play ability that they used to have with Tyreek Hill. They definitely need to fix the left side of the line. I know Tooney, they were trying to figure him out on the left tackle, at left guard. I think they need to definitely go back to establishing that. And I think call a spade. I think Travis Kelce is definitely the downward trend of his career, and the load management did not really come to fruition. It didn't really pay dividends for them at the end. He just looked like a marginalized player, in my opinion.
Well, he played great in the divisional round. It just conference game and Super Bowl. It just Hey, I'm not going to blame it all on Travis, but I do agree. Look, he's 35 years old. You're on your downward tread. Like you're a position player. You're 35. Like you're 100% going downhill. But if you didn't have time to pass or couldn't get him the ball, like that's a different story. I would think.
I don't think it's so much that Mahomes and the Chiefs lost, more that the Eagles won. Quite frankly, I mean, when you get that much pressure just on the front four, when you have your rookie cornerbacks playing out of their mind, when you have your linebackers being able to come up and put pressure and even drop back into coverage like that, like there's not a lot of offenses out there that are going to be able to take apart that defense, in my opinion. Like they got to the championship for a reason, right? Like they were whatever their record was in one score games from the very beginning, the Chiefs. So they were winning those close games and those tight games and keeping it close all the time. And then they went up against a juggernaut that had a top end team from top to bottom. And we said this last week too. Like everyone thought we were crazy, Roger. We were picking the Eagles to win, right? But I mean,
I felt it. I don't know
it
what
was
it was.
dominance.
I
Like
felt
this,
it, man.
the team is stacked from top to bottom. And even 2 years ago when they lost against the Chiefs, the only thing that they were missing was a top end running back, or at least a competent running back. And then they got Saquon Barkley. Yeah, I know he didn't do anything at all this game, but what did he do? He forced the defense to focus on him. So then Hurts was able to play his game and do
And
the
they stuck to him.
RPOs and do the read options and make those runs and break out plays and get the first downs.
25 carries, 57 yards.
Yeah, it was.
That's not a bad game. Like they kept going with it and they kept it on us to
Isn't
allow
that
for
two?
the
That's
play
two.
action.
Game management
That's 2
too,
yards
right?
per
Time
carry. I
management.
think his largest carry was 10 yards.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I called it at the beginning of the game, though. If you remember, I said he wasn't going to get to 60 yards rushing.
Yeah, 100%. I think your main prop bet was under 110.
Yeah, that one
which
was, I think,
honestly,
like the gimme of the.
it was a big time gimme. There was a lot of GOAT talk before. Obviously, Reid, Mahomes, Kelce versus Belichick, Brady, Gronkowski. Nak, I feel like in our Bush League group chat, you're like our resident GOAT czar conciliary. You always got a good feeling out this. Where do you see yourself in terms of the GOAT talk right now? Like, factoring in that Brady, he was also 3-2 at some point, and then he ended up going, I believe, 10 years until his next Super Bowl
So
ring.
that's where I was going first. First of all, I want to say that it's already starting to sound like the LeBron MJ debate, and I'm already feeling nauseous about it. Like, first of all, like let the guy finish his career. Like let him. He's only 29 years old, and we're already like, well, he's lost. Well, both quarterbacks lost a Super Bowl as favorites to end their 7th season as starters. They both squandered historic opportunities to set themselves apart from the rest, right? Like Eli Manning came in and disturbed that trend when the Giants beat them, and then for Mahomes, it was the three-peat, and the Eagles just kind of took care of business. They played amazing last night. Like kudos to the Eagles. Like go talk. I think everyone can agree if Mahomes retires tomorrow, he's in the Hall of Fame, right? I
Yeah.
don't think there's any.
Yes.
I don't think there's any discussion about that.
100%.
And
Yeah.
what's funny is that Mahomes has a 106 wins, 27 losses record as a starter, including playoffs. And Brady was 104 and 29 mark in the same number of career starts. So they won the same amount of Super Bowls, lost the same amount of Super Bowls, and have identical records. But everyone is freaking out that well, he's not the GOAT, or he's not yet. That's for sure. But like, can he finish his career first, and then we could talk about it?
I feel like Mahomes' first two Super Bowl appearances were very much like the tail and the back half of Brady's Super Bowl appearances, where it was offense galore, deep shots. And now I feel like Mahomes, the last, call it 3 Super Bowls, the first Eagles one, last year's, and even this year, it feels like Brady's first few Super Bowls, where he needs to rely a bit more on his defense and just a slight amount of regression with Mahomes right now.
But he's also like he's missing that top guy, right? Like that top receiver. Like Brady in that Super Bowl he lost, that was the Randy Moss year where Randy went nuts, right? Like he squandered that, but he still had the guy. Like they're hoping Rashee Rice could come in and do it, and maybe for whatever the case. But like yes, Kelce, like we just said, we alluded it to. Look at Brady's stats. That was the other thing I was looking at is Brady's stats without Gronk. That's when Brady started going downhill. When Gronk was not there or injured, his stats aren't as great with Gronk out of the lineup. When we talk GOAT and everyone's ready to, the only stat that Mahomes has against him, and I think this is a legit stat, in Brady's 3 Super Bowl losses. He's lost by a total of 15 points. And Mahomes, 2 losses. He's lost by 40 combined points. So again, it's not all on the quarterback because he can't play defense, but it's still a huge stat in terms of can you come back and keep the game close, right? In
It's actually 40 because they lost
Yeah.
24-10.
when they lost to Tampa, they got destroyed.
Oh no, sorry, it was 31. Yeah, right. Sorry, I was thinking something.
Yeah, they got
You're right.
destroyed versus Tampa. They've lost by 20 both times, 20 plus both
Yeah, you're
times,
right.
right? When they lost, but I don't know. All this go talk. They have identical stats at the exact same times of their career. Is he going to win 4 more? Maybe not. Can he win 2 or 3 more in the next 10 years? Let's say. I think he could.
I was watching. Fab, do you have anything to add on this?
No, I agree with the LeBron and actually Jordan comparison. Quite frankly, I feel like Mahomes is going to be the LeBron the LeBron in this conversation for years to come. I mean, yeah, you can crown him as a Hall of Famer now, and it's an exhaustive conversation. Yeah, they're the GOAT. Period. One thing I do want to mention though is that Belichick is much more of a defensive coach versus Andy Reid is more of an offensive coach. So I think that might have to play into the whole thing that you mentioned, Mac, about losing 40, like a combined total of 40 points in your loss versus, was it 15 for Brady? I think that has something to play in it. But Mahomes needs that number one wide receiver, whether it's going to be Rashee Rice or somebody else right now. Until they have the offensive weapons, I feel like it's going to be tough sledding for Mahomes, no matter how good of a quarterback he is.
Yeah, and honestly, just final point on GOAT talk. Like he's been a starter for 7 years and has made the AFC Championship in all 7 years. And in his first 7 years, he's appeared in 5 Super Bowls. Like,
Crazy.
that stat on its own, like you're not going to win every Super Bowl. Like it just goes to like
Exactly.
Brady won. I mean, Brady lost 3 of them, right? Like you're not going to win them all. So to put him down over, yes, and I agree with everyone out there. That was the worst game he's played in his career, and it came at the most inopportune moment, right? Like it just came at the wrong time. But that was his worst game as a pro, I think, hands down. But man, just look at all of what he's done, and he's only 29 years old. It's insane.
We're talking a lot about Mahomes, but the guy we really should be talking about is Jalen Hurts. And I was someone who I've hated on, and I don't want to say hated, it's a bit strong, but I've been skeptical about Hurts since his first playoff game against Tampa, where I thought he did not look like an NFL starter. And then he came back the year after pretty much with an amazing performance in the first Super Bowl appearance against the Chiefs. This year, there's a lot of struggles, but he's been on an absolute heater in this playoffs. Fab, take it however you want with kind of this like redemption story with Hurts. How has he impressed you in terms of just his overall playoff performance?
I owe Jalen Hurts an apology because at the beginning of the season, I thought that with Kellen Moore as his OC, he was going to actually struggle, and a lot of his faults were going to come more to light. So I owe Jalen Hurts an apology because he is a legitimate quarterback, and the guy has come back from adversity both at college and also now at the pro level as well. Right when he was benched at Bama for that whole season and only became a starter in Oklahoma. So you got to give credit where credit is due. He balled out in specifically the last 2 Super Bowls. Looking up his stats right now, like 700 total yards, 7 total touchdowns, 92.3 PFF in both of those Super Bowls. He's good. And not only is he good and not only is he a proper quarterback, but he gets it done under pressure when he's supposed to. The guy doesn't crack. He has no emotion out there. It could be the first game of the season or the Super Bowl, and he looks exactly the same. He approaches it the same way. No, I'm listen, as a Giants fan, like I'm happy for Jalen Hurts. I feel like he deserved it. But that's where I'm gonna end on his flowers at the moment.
Well,
I can't give him too much.
If you add to that his last 2 Super Bowls, talking stats, he has a 71% completion percentage, and last night it was 77. Like this guy gets knocked for, oh, he's not accurate, he can't make this. He made some big time throws last night, and yeah, I think most of the world, or at least North America, owes this guy an apology. Besides, the state of Pennsylvania, because it's just Yeah, man, he proved all the haters completely wrong. And I mean, look, we said it. He has to have a pretty much perfect game. He threw that interception, which whatever didn't end up costing them much because the Chiefs couldn't move the ball anyways. But barring that, he was pretty much perfect on the night, and his stats just speak for themselves. It's insane.
For me, it was all the RPOs that he was working, picking up the blitzes and calling out man coverage and reading the defensive coverage
Yes.
and know exactly what was going to happen when it was supposed to happen. And those chunk run plays that he had, like those were heads up plays.
119 passer
It was
rating.
good. It was really interesting. Yeah.
His ability to, like you said it, Fab, identify man coverage is his superpower. He does this as well as anyone. And my God, the deep shot that was the dagger shot to Devontae Smith was like, that was game over. And what a throw it was. He is one of 3 quarterbacks to have won a natty and a Super Bowl along with Joe Montana and Joe Namath.
Yep. And you mentioned Smith. You
Rarefied
mentioned
air.
Smith catching that touchdown pass. It's the first Bama drafted player to catch a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl, which was pretty shocking to me, actually.
Fab, just a little bit still on Hurts. You're taking Hurts over Baker Mayfield, right?
Well, again, if we go by fantasy points, let's just say they're both ranked very close to each other.
No, but like this just like, and that's the last thing on this. We'll move on, but it just makes you like, there's some guys that we crown too easily. Like I know I hated on Hurts, but like I'm giving him all his flowers. I'm not gonna talk crap on him again. But I do not want to hear any arguments that Justin Herbert is better than Jalen Hurts. To me, I don't want to hear that anymore. Like there's some guys where I'll say, look, obviously the Lamars, the Burrows, the Mahomes, those guys are naturally, I think they're more talented, done more from a regular season perspective. Mind you, they haven't won the big one. I'm fine conceding those players, but I will no longer concede Justin Herbert, who throws 4 picks against the freaking Houston Texans, being better than Jalen Hurts. I will no longer concede who else? Like Jared Goff, who has as much talent as Jalen Hurts. I will no longer concede Jordan Love. Mind you, he's still they're the same age, Axe. For the love of God, they're the same age.
Jordan Love disappointed me this year. Big time. He was injured, sure, but very disappointing.
Yeah. So
Justin Herbert, from a pure NFL standpoint, I would put them at the same level as Hurts. I'm not going to say I wouldn't say Hurts is better or Herbert is better, but for me, they are very comparable as far as quarterbacks are concerned from a pure NFL standpoint.
I would say Hurts is better, and I don't think it's that close.
And you gotta win. Like and I know we say wins a QB stat. Are they not? Like at some point you gotta win. At some point you gotta, like, not throwing dumb picks is a skill, right? And I think we put too much. I think there's like the fantasy footballization of QBs where we equate fantasy. And I'm not saying us, but just in general, I think like overall we equate fantasy football stats and numbers to being a good and elite QB. And I think there needs to be more credence on actual winning, not turning the ball over, running the offense as your offensive coordinator wants you to run it, which I think a lot of QBs don't even do that.
I think you bring up like a great point when it comes to comparing players and people who play fantasy football. You get too locked into the points and fantasy wise when you're trying to like describe any kind of player, and I feel like it does happen a lot. I'm not pointing fingers at you, Fab. I'm saying
Fab has this spark. I'm not talking about us. I'm not talking about us. I think we could decipher.
He was looking at me funny, like.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at Hurts, and again, flowers to Hurts, all the respect in the world. I don't want to take anything away from the guy. He didn't even throw for 3,000 yards this year. Like, I understand. Like, talking about better quarterback, pure quarterback skill. Like, he runs that off. Hey, he runs the offense well. He picks.
They went 14-2 and had a 2,000-yard rusher.
That exactly.
and had
Like
2,000-yard rusher.
Yeah, okay.
So give Herbert a 2,000-yard rusher. You don't think he would
He
be
had
as
league
good of a
winner
quarterback as he
J.K.
will be?
Dobbins.
and he had
Thank
and Gus
you. There it
Edwards.
is. Well, guys, we got to take the fantasy out of this, though. We got to take
And
the fantasy out of this,
he's
right?
also had Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler. I mean,
This is a great segue to Fab and I's boy, Saquon Barkley. I want to do a little legacy check
I'm very curious
on.
to hear this one from.
I want to do a little
Signings.
legacy check on Saquon Barkley. So Saquon Barkley finishes with theoretically the best season from a rushing yards perspective of anyone. He surpassed Terrell Davis by about 30 or so yards. He finished with 2,500 yards regular season and postseason. He capped it off, obviously, with a Super Bowl.
Did Terrell Davis that year play as many games? That's the only thing
Well,
I
that's
didn't
the
check.
thing. So that's the thing. I didn't
I
check,
think he had a
but
bye.
I would say no.
oh, sorry, no.
Just because
Yeah,
we have a
I have
longer
it in front of
season
me.
too now.
I have it in front of me. Barkley played 20 games. Terrell Davis played the year he did. So he
He
did
would have played 19
2,300 and
most.
2,400. Both years were 19.
Yeah.
19.
So he did
And
have.
those were the years where he was, I believe he was MVP. I think at least one out of those years.
And let me
But
can I just get your thoughts for 1 second? You know when uh, like Watt even broke the sack record or tied the sack record, but he needed an extra a game to do it because straight hand, whatever. Like what's your guys' stance on that? You know, like people breaking records, but like there's been games that have been added. You know, when 18 games gets added, like these 2,000-yard rushers are going to happen all the time, right? Like if they break the rushing title and they have 2 extra games, how do you?
I agree, and I've always looked at that too. I'm like, okay, maybe we should look at that as a yards per game thing. But then you know what?
exactly.
The season, but the type of game now is different than when it was when Terrell Davis played and all that stuff. Like it's you can't equate the two. You can't equate the two eras of the sport and say, you know what, you have an extra game, it doesn't count. Well, no, he needed an extra game because the game is probably harder now than it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And that, so for me, it's a bit of a wash conversation. I try not to look at that. Like, it's one thing if you needed 5 games or 6 games or whatever,
Well,
but
it's
if we're
going to be
talking about
2
like a
games
huge
soon.
team,
It's going to be 2 games more soon than like most records. That's when now it's going to start like, okay, 2,000-yard rusher, like guys like Barkley or someone who could do it is definitely breaking the record if they have 18 games to play, right? And if he did it in 16 games or in 15 games, there's a difference, right? And I think to your point, you got to take yards per game and like make the records a little bit different.
So, Knack, make the case that Saquon Barkley will be a Hall of Famer in, let's say, like he plays another 3 years and he finishes with like 10,000 yards. Can you make the case that Saquon Barkley will be a Hall of Famer? Can you make the case that he's a Hall of Famer now?
No,
If he has 2
no,
more
no,
1,000-yard
If
seasons?
someone tells me he's a
no.
Hall of Famer now, you just don't know what you're talking about. I feel, and I don't think to me the Super Bowl doesn't push the envelope for me. It never has for Hall of Fame. I think that's based on stats. I don't even think he cracks anywhere near the top 20 right now as it is. He's only had like
So, Knack, I'm
Thirty,
gonna
each
stop. I'm gonna
32nd
stop you there
overall
because
in
it did
yards.
push the needle for Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis. What helped Terrell Davis was the back-to-back Super Bowls, the rushing championship, and from a yardage perspective.
if Saquon does this
He
2
only
years in a
he only
row,
plays 8 years.
if Saquon puts up another 2,000 yards next year and wins a Super Bowl, I will give him a Hall of Fame. But
Okay, so
unfortunately,
that's what he needs. That's what he
You want
needs.
that?
unfortunately
You
to
want
me,
that?
like he has 28% of his total rushing yards in one season. So that was this year. All the important to me Hall of Fame accolades came in this season. First year All Pro, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Okay, he has 3 Pro Bowls, but I don't count that.
Yeah.
I think he needs to sustain multiple seasons before he's ready to be a surefire Hall of Fame. Like if he can stay healthy and perform at a high level and continue to do this, fantastic. I'm ready to crown him. He does not have to win another Super Bowl to be crowned in the Hall of Fame, but he's got to put up numbers to get there in my opinion.
One thing I will say though, there has been 8 players to crack 2,000 yards rushing. Of the ones that are eligible for the Hall of Fame, which are 6, 4 are in. The other 2 being Jamal Lewis and Chris Johnson.
Chris Johnson's a
So-
Hall of Famer?
He's not
No.
in the
Okay,
Hall
yeah.
of
I was
Fame.
going to say,
I don't think he was
The
I don't.
other
Which
2 being Jamal
unfortunately-
Lewis and Chris Johnson. Right now, no, he's not. I think he has to sustain some level of production going forward. But I think his case has gotten a hell of a lot stronger, in my opinion. And if he has like maybe another 2 or 3 years of decent production, like I'm talking 1,400 yards type thing, I think he gets in.
Like his stats on paper, like he had an amazing rookie year, offensive rookie of the
Yep.
year. That was amazing. Then it was like by injury and this, and then like obviously bad seasons. You could say bad teams. Like 'cause
It's almost
scored.
you need to have a good offensive
Well, that's
line
what
to play well as a running.
that's my
Is it
point.
a
He
team,
went
right?
to the best team, the best situation, the best offensive line. Now, if he turns around and has 1,000 yards next year, Super Hall of Fame kind of goes down a little bit in my books if he's hovering around that 1,000 yard mark. Rather, I'm not saying he's going to crack 2,000 yards every year, but you want to make the Hall of Fame, you got to be in that 1,500 discussion with those double digit touchdowns in a season.
Guys, I think he makes it. I think if he retires next year, he makes it. Because I'm looking, to me, the barometer is Terrell Davis, and I'm looking at his stats right now. Terrell Davis, rookie year, 1,100 yards. Second year, 1,500 yards. Third season, 1,700 yards. Then he had the MVP year in 1988 of 2,000 yards.
Barkley only has 3 seasons right now over 13.
But then after that, basically Terrell Davis, his career was over because he had so many injuries. Terrell Davis had 4 years and 1 MVP.
How many
3 All Pros?
They're 3 All Pros.
3 All Pros. Yeah,
3.
like
Look at his
3 of them.
touchdowns,
He was
too.
the best running back for 3 years in the NFL. Like running backs play what,
Yeah.
6 years their average lifespan? Like you're talking he was an all pro for 3 of them? Like an average running back doesn't play very long, right? If we're being honest, like
Did you mention he won MVP?
Yeah, he won MVP, which I think Barkley.
that's a huge one.
I think Barkley in that era wins the MVP
Maybe.
for sure.
Oh yeah.
I think that. So I don't want to penalize him.
No, I
because it's
won't
harder
penalize him for that. 100%.
Harder for a running back to win an MVP now, but I think
It's
Barkley's career is
impossible
not
for
going to be
running back to
over
win.
now. It's not going to be over like God forbid. So I think he has at least another 3,000 yards to add to his repertoire, which I think it'll get him in. I think
he has a chance, but also remember the way they're voting now when they took away a player, there's only 4 people going in. Like right now, his stats to me are not yelling first ballot Hall of Fame. You're almost half the touchdowns of Frank Gore at the moment, and you have a player like Derrick Henry. Like, bro, he's got 106 touchdowns. Derrick Henry and he's like 6th all time, right? Like right now, Henry retires tomorrow. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Agreed.
Right? He doesn't have to win anything. And he did it, to me, it was more impressive because he did it a lot with a not so great team, right? He did it with the Titans. The Titans they had a couple years where they were good, but not many.
Plus, the last running back to win MVP was Adrian Peterson, 2,000-yard season, 12 touchdowns. So you can even argue that this year Barkley's season was better than that one.
But what were the QB stats in that year? That's what you'd have to look at. Like, what was the QB stat look like? Although I hate that it's like become a quarterback award.
It's a QB award, and the offensive player of the year is the award for non QBs. It's like it's a skill position award, or at least we're the ones. It's the award where the skill positions.
It's because just like the MVP, like Barkley, like got votes for sure. But I'm saying like, man, Allen touched the ball every play. He beat the Lions. He beat the Chiefs. He beat some big time teams. Like, they needed him to win, right? Like, sure, if I was voting in Philadelphia's locker room, Barkley's my MVP of the team, without a doubt. But I don't think without Saquon Barkley, they're not successful.
Fab, last word on the MVP stuff.
Yeah, so that year in 2012, Drew Brees won MVP. 5,177 yards passing and 43 passing touchdowns.
That's insane.
So
Drew Brees didn't win the MVP. Adrian Peterson won it.
Because, yeah,
yeah,
that's
but
He
that was
didn't
that
even
the
win
was that the Brett
Offensive
Favre?
Player
Was
of
that the
the
Brett
Year.
Favre?
Offensive Player of the Year went to Adrian Peterson and Offensive Player of the Year went to Adrian Peterson, and so did the MVP.
Who was the
He won
Vikings?
both?
Who was the Vikings?
Yeah.
Who was the
Yes.
Vikings QB that year?
Now you guys are asking for a lot, eh?
Well, I mean, while you're there, you might as well. Oh,
Yeah, I'm
Was it
looking it up. Hold on a
Christian
second.
Ponder?
Christian Ponder. Yes,
Oh,
Christian Ponder.
okay. So you see where if Adrian Peterson is not there, that team is nowhere, right? Like Christian Ponder is throwing the football. Like,
And they went 10-6 that
see,
year.
like that's where you have like the
And Drew Brees and the Saints went 7-9. So there it is.
I don't think.
you see
I don't
7-9, you can't be an MVP. Like I'm sorry, like
Yeah.
you didn't propel you
Yeah,
propelled your
well,
team to 9 losses. That's not MVP.
Dude, he didn't even win. He didn't even win All Pro. He didn't even make All Pro. Peyton Manning got All Pro. Mind you, Peyton Manning had a good season. 13-3, 4,600
Yeah, but
yards. 37.
I think.
that's what
I think we could have. I think we could
Yeah,
definitely have
go.
an like.
We could go into
We
this.
could go on and on with
like we could go on like crazy.
You throw 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and you just get a Pro Bowl.
Bro, 7
I agree.
and 9 though, like you
7 and 9
that doesn't
is-
scream MVP to me. You lost 9 times.
No, I'm fine. Don't scream MVP to me, but give the guy something.
You got a Pro Bowl.
Any last thoughts on Super Bowl 59, guys, or on the season? That wraps up the 2024-2025 season. Any last thoughts?
Rookie impact for me. I feel like the rookies took a big center stage across like all levels of the game, whether it's offense or defense. I mean, they were everywhere. Wide receivers, running backs a little bit. You know, Bucky Irvin really stole the show, right? But wide receivers were a big, and obviously quarterbacks too, and even some defensive players. Like, yeah, rookies are showing up. I find
All the first round QBs played.
Yeah.
True, it's true.
Yeah.
Much to the chagrin.
Actually, no. JJ McCarthy did not play.
JJ McCarthy
did not play.
Play preseason, but
yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that one.
And the running backs are back.
The running backs are indeed back.
The running backs are back.
Who's on the mark? Oh, not like Najee Harris. Like obviously he's not gonna like. I'm just trying to think of running backs who are on the market right now, trying to surpass that. Like obviously Christian McCaffrey is like on an island on his own. I think he's 16 or 17 million. But then you have Barkley at 13. Like who's available right now that's going to touch where Saquon Barkley is? Like what's your argument? You know,
available like as into trade?
No, free agent. Like a free agent who's going to sign this year like running back. I don't think there's that many. Like J.K. Dobbins. There's Harris. There's who else signed a 1-year deal? Anyways, we could.
Yeah, we'll have a ton of
exactly.
Off-season. Now. So I mean, that's a great time to talk about. We're going to move into off-season mode as we come and go. The goal for us is to have one episode for a week for the most part. Fab, you want to say something?
Just one last thing on this. So PFF has the rankings of like top 3 agents on position. Number 1 is Aaron Jones. So that tells you where
was on a 1-year deal. That's what I'm missing.
Yeah,
that tells you where the running back market is in this offseason.
Yeah, but
he's not going
to get $13 million.
Not a great one. I think where it'll happen is the draft. There's a ton of there's Genty. I believe there's Travion Henderson. I think Judkins as well.
Deep draft for running backs.
Really deep draft for running backs.
What's his name there? Skip Boo.
Cam Scatterboo as well.
That's what I meant.
Kid Boo Boo. Is that what you just called him?
Skip Boo Boo. Dude, Cam Scatterboo. Wasn't that far off.
So obviously you guys everyone got a great glimpse of the potential offseason content that we're going to have. So it's definitely going to be free agency. I think next week we're going to start talking about a lot of the coaching staff changes that happened. There's been a lot of news during Super Bowl week about rumors, whether it's Myles Garrett, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Rodgers. So we're going to get into all the kind of offseason rumors and scuttlebutt. So thank you everyone for being with Scuttlebutt. Scuttlebutt is a term. It's like a
Oh, I believe you. I just never heard it before, using this context.
Yeah, I try to impress
you
guys.
Keep on the scuttlebutt.
Scuttlebutt. Adaboo and scuttlebutt.
I'm gonna scuttlebutt you if you don't.
So please stick with us. We're gonna be continuing the episodes on a weekly basis. Content obviously on social media. Again, follow us, add us, listen. It's been a great ride, and we'll continue it for the upcoming season, the upcoming off season. So On behalf of Fab and Knack, I'm Raj. Again, don't forget to follow on all social media platforms. And we'll be seeing you guys next time on the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Offseason Draft and Free Agency podcast.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
How are you
I'm
gonna
happy
do
with
on Sundays now, man?
What?
What are you gonna do on Sundays? Have to spend time.
It's good.
Jeez.
We're gonna have to look at the rookies and the free agent findings, and
It's the best. I can't
Start-
wait.
To go shopping
Start
for a
prepping
couch.
for
Gotta go to Bed
fantasy
Bath and
season.
Beyond. My God.
I don't think I have enough time. I don't know if I have enough time.
Have a good one, guys.
Take care, guys.
Goodbye.